Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. Things went from bad to worse on Saturday when Purdue fell to Oregon State 38-21, falling to 1-2 on the season and raising some serious questions about the direction of the program. We're not shying away from it here on the show today. We're going to look back on the loss and take a little bit of a look forward at where things are headed for the Purdue program. Lots of questions from you guys on Twitter to dive into as well. Plenty to get to. Let's jump on in. If you don't already, be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. You can always send in questions for the show there. Lots to talk about there. You'll want to be sure you're following. You can also email the show, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Oregon State 38, Purdue 21. This game was a really big one for Purdue, and right away you felt like Purdue got some juice going. Oregon State on its first drive goes for it on 4th and 2 inside its own territory. A very aggressive, borderline reckless decision that it doesn't get. Purdue snuffed out a pass play on that and gets the ball in prime field position. A couple of nice runs, and Purdue is inside the red zone, but fumbles on 3rd and 2. A botched zone read exchange between Hudson Card and Devin Mockabee. And that was really just foreshadowing the rest of the game. That told you exactly what was going to happen. Purdue had bad luck, yes. The pick six that goes off of Reggie Love's foot, I mean, yeah, that's bad luck. Was it a good throw? No. But that's bad luck. There was the fumbled punt in the second half that was overturned by a replay that was close. I think they probably got the call right, but man, that would have really changed things if you're Purdue. Down 17-7 and you get the ball, I mean, in Oregon State territory, pretty deep. That changes things in a heartbeat. But the old adage says, you create your own luck. And Purdue didn't deserve to win this game. Purdue did what losing teams do, and Purdue did not make winning plays in this game. We saw a lot of the same problems persist from last week and to some degree the last year plus. Purdue could not get anything going in the passing game. And I will point out that Jamal Adrine did not play for Purdue. C.J. Smith did not play for Purdue. Coming into the season, we thought those two were Purdue's best receivers. Now, is it still valid to say that about C.J. Smith since we haven't seen him yet? And since Ryan Walters kind of indicated after the game that he doesn't know when we're going to see him? Maybe. But Jamal Adrine, unexpected, he's going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks, according to Walters in the postgame. Without those two, this is kind of the opportunity for other guys to step up, and that didn't happen in the slightest bit. In the pass game, Purdue had as poor of a performance as I can remember Purdue having throwing the ball really ever. I saw a stat on Twitter that, this is the third worst passing performance since 2000 in terms of total yardage. And if my memory serves, the other two were in 2010 that would be Rob Henry games, and Purdue wasn't really trying to throw the ball then. Hudson Card goes 7 for 17 for 56 yards. That's unbelievable. All but 10 of those yards came on 2 completions to Max Clare. Clare has 46 yards. Your leading receiver, Leland Smith, 5 yards, 1 catch. Denylon Morissette, Andrew Sawinski, Dixon Veal, they each grab 1. And then Jerron Tibbs gets hit with a drop. This is a massive, massive issue for Purdue. And we'll get to Graham Harrell later, but Purdue can't throw the ball. And on a day when Purdue ran the ball remarkably effectively, Purdue ran for 8.8 yards per carry. Not always the best stat, because one long one, Devin Maccabee's 63-yard carry a little bit, can skew that. But Purdue had a lot of success running the football. But when you are so unable to do anything in the passing game, your offense is going to be limited enough that it's not easy to win. And that's what we saw from Purdue. The receivers didn't make a difference at all. The offensive line did play a little better. Hudson Card had some more time to work with. But this combination of quarterback and receivers and scheme is not working for Purdue. And that's terribly concerning. I was looking at these numbers earlier today. 7 completions for Purdue, but 3 of those were screens. And those 3 screens combined for 2 yards. So if you take the screens out of this, Purdue's 4 for 14 passing. You cannot win like that. You just can't. You can't compete like that. Purdue's not that good running the football to be able to do that. And you look at the defensive side of the ball, Purdue still cannot set the edge. Purdue cannot force opposing ball carriers to have to run between the tackles. And that's what this defense virtually requires you to do schematically, because you are exposed on the edges. You don't have, like a classic 3 linebackers in the middle in a 4-3 to go run sideline to sideline. You don't have that. If you can force guys up the middle, that's where Kydron Jenkins is at his best. He had a really nice bounce back day yesterday because you saw him make a lot of plays in between the tackles. But Purdue can't set the edge and force the opposition to run between the tackles. Instead, what you saw was Purdue all over the place, trying to cover a jet sweep and a speed option. Look, I don't want to just beat a dead horse here, but the jet sweep hasn't been some crazy effective play since like 2010. I mean, this isn't supposed to be something groundbreaking that's super hard to figure out. And the speed option, Purdue just horrendously struggled with. I don't know if that's something that can be fixed. You've seen this in back-to-back weeks. Purdue's just really struggling to play sideline to sideline defense. Purdue's really struggling to get to the ball. And when Purdue does get to the ball, it was better tackling yesterday, but it wasn't perfect. I don't know that there's an easy fix to this. I just don't. The most concerning part of this game, if you ask me, is just the simple reality that Oregon State looked like the better team. I mean this with all due respect to Oregon State, but this is a program that was kicked to the curb by its former conference mates. It's in quite the precarious situation. Its coach left, who went to Oregon State, played quarterback at Oregon State, left for Michigan State. Smart career decision, but that's a slap in the face. The quarterback, who was Aiden Childs, really highly regarded recruit, follows him to Michigan State. You've got like 40 guys transfer out. This is one of the most new rosters in the country. Took more transfers than Purdue even did. Yet you look at this, in this roster of a team that's about to be sharing a conference with Boise State and Fresno State. Who are the other ones? Colorado State, maybe? That's basically going to be a glorified Mountain West. This roster was better than Purdue's, at least on Saturday when it came to executing. I don't think it's a more talented roster, but it certainly looked to be better. And that's a real problem. You look at Oregon State running for 341 yards on you. I mean, that's an abomination. There's no other way to look at it. Oregon State ran the ball for 6 yards a carry on 57 rushing attempts. 57 rushing attempts to just 18 pass attempts. I mean, come on. That you just can't win games when you allow your opponent to do that. And you see it in the time of possession. Purdue finished this game with 19 minutes and 45 seconds of possession. And look, I am fully on board that time of possession is not the greatest stat in the world. Because if you hit a 75-yard touchdown pass on the first play of a drive, or you go down the field on a 12-play 75-yard drive, at the end of the day, they both count as 7 points. But when it's that extreme, when your opponent has the ball for more than 40 minutes, there's no spin zone on that. That's really poor. I want to try to take positives away, give credit where credit's due to Devin Maccabee, now over 2,000 rushing yards in his career. Dude ran like his hair was on fire yesterday. He played really hard. He ran really hard. Give him a lot of credit. It's hard to quantify when you look at a guy and you can just tell he cares, that the game means a lot to him. But Devin Maccabee played really hard yesterday, and he deserves a lot of credit. His career has come at an odd time, and when we look back in Purdue history, this span is probably going to be viewed very weirdly, going from Braum to Walters, because really the only constant over the last 3 years has been Devin Maccabee. And, I mean, sure, Gus Hartwig and Jenkins, but that's about it. You know, this is such a new roster that it's come at a weird time, but give him credit. 2,000 yards is quite the accomplishment. He's had a really nice career at Purdue. One stat I found strange is that Purdue has still not attempted a field goal yet this year. We're through 3 games. Purdue has not attempted a field goal. You know, Ryan Walters after the game, you could tell he's bothered. You could tell he's upset. It was interesting to me, and I don't want to look too much into post-game pressers, but he did acknowledge that they need to look at whether their personnel on defense can execute the scheme that they're asked to run. This is a very aggressive defense. This is one that you do require pretty high-level personnel to run. Does Purdue have that or not? Over the last 2 weeks, you've gotten quite an answer. If that's not the reality, then we're in an interesting spot. I don't know if Purdue is capable of, really shifting up what it does dramatically, but that's not what you want to hear necessarily, but good on him for recognizing it. Look, this is a rough loss. I'm about to get into Q&A, and we've got a ton to get into there, but big picture, this is a really damaging loss. I had said coming into this game that this was critically important because this is kind of a peer program. Not really, because Oregon State's not in the same stratosphere of conference affiliation as Purdue, but especially this year, this is a team that's a pretty good measuring stick of where Purdue is at. And Purdue failed to measure up to where Oregon State is. That was a real problem. And when you look at silver linings and you look at trying to move forward from this, boy, that's a real slap in the face. And these are the types of games that really sour the fan base when you're not competitive. You're playing on a bizarre combination of News Nation and the CW. I mean, this isn't exactly losing to Notre Dame. As bad as that game was, it's not losing to Notre Dame. It's not losing to a power conference opponent. It's losing to Oregon State. And Oregon State's a fine program. But with where Purdue wants to be this year, if Purdue is not one of the bottom teams in the Big Ten, then you don't go out there and lose by 17 to Oregon State. Plain and simple. I want to get in the Q&A here because I had a lot. By far the most questions I've ever received for a podcast. I want to just kind of hit some talking points here because I had so many questions about the same topics. So let's start with Graham Harrell, Purdue's offensive coordinator. As you may suspect, a lot of questions about whether Purdue fires him, what Purdue does there. Obviously, the offense is not working right now. This is a disaster. Purdue scoring 21 points, and Purdue did, to be fair here, have almost 7 yards per play. That's not terrible. But when you just look at this, the eyeball test is horrible. The passing game is non-existent. And Purdue can't rely on a run game. Purdue was able to run the ball yesterday, and that's awesome. Purdue's not going to be able to do that in every game moving forward. This scheme is not working. You're not scheming stuff open in the pass game. The air raid offense, and that's not really what Purdue is running here. Everyone who comes from the air raid tree gets labeled an air raid guy, and I get it, especially with Harrell since he was a Mike Leach quarterback at Texas Tech. But an air raid offense is getting the ball out quick. Getting the ball out, let your receivers go make plays. But you got to get the ball out, and then you can throw the ball downfield a bit. But Hudson Card's average depth of target was more than 11 yards on Saturday. Purdue took some deep shots, and I give Purdue credit for that. But, man, I mean, Purdue just couldn't get anything going in the passing game. And it hasn't. This isn't new. It didn't against Notre Dame. There were times last year where it was rough. And I don't think the receivers are particularly good, but you have to find ways to scheme points on the scoreboard for what you have. And Purdue's not doing that right now. But where I think the conversation flips a little bit is that I have no idea if you fire him, and I don't see Purdue making a move mid-season for a number of reasons. One of them being, who takes over as your play caller? Who takes over as your play caller? Because right now, Corey Patterson's never called plays that I'm aware of. Lamar Connard has not called plays that I'm aware of. Justin Sins has not called plays in his career. So who is it? Who's the guy that's going to be your play caller? Someone's got to do it. And if no one else is remotely qualified, then you're just firing someone to fire someone rather than firing someone to get better, help your team. And there's no sense in doing that. Do I think this is leading towards a breakup at the end of the season? It's looking like it, but there's still 9 games to play. Nothing is in cement here in terms of staff shakeups, coaching changes, any of that. There's still so much football left. But again, as I move here into Ryan Walters, the concerning part is that we're 3 games in and the fan base has collectively decided it's done with Walters or with Graham Harrell. That's a problem. You still got 3/4 of your season to go. And in terms of Ryan Walters in the future there, this is a huge disappointment. This was a rough game for that. Coming into the season, Purdue fans seem to give him a pass for what last year was. I think there was a lot of angst about the way Jeff Brom departed. I think there was a lot of angst about the talent level on the roster. Purdue goes 4-8. I think a lot of folks said, so be it. We're going to move on. But that goodwill all seems to be gone because the conversation about Purdue's coaching situation has really soured over the last, 9 days since Purdue lost to Notre Dame. I'm a little surprised at how unanimous some of the conversation is today. You go to Twitter and you go to my replies, and there's not a lot of defense of Ryan Walters out there right now. And that's rough. That's not good. He's only 15 games into his tenure at Purdue. That's not good that there's not much support out there. That's your problem. 10 years ago, it would have been ridiculous to have conversations about the employment status of a second-year coach based strictly on on-field results. That would have been viewed as a big red flag to potential candidates, and you can't recruit like that, and you can't build a program. Now, I think it's different. Fundraising and fan engagement and donor engagement is such a big part of the sport with NIL and collectives. You have to keep that in mind here. And by no means should Purdue be considering making a move in season. And I don't even know that Purdue would make a move after the season. Moving on from a second-year coach is very abnormal. You don't see that much. But if the fan base is completely out, that's a conversation you have to have. And it's an ugly one. It's a very ugly one. I mean, these are real people's lives that are impacted. But right now, Purdue sits at 5-10 under Ryan Walters. Purdue will likely only be favored in one more game the rest of the season. Things don't look particularly good. When you really focus this on Ryan Walters as well, the defense is, it's a problem. This is what Ryan Walters, it's his baby. When he was hired at his introductory press conference, he came out and said, I think I'm the best defensive coordinator in the nation. We're going to be doing what I do on defense. And that's great, but it's not working for Purdue. Purdue was last in the Big Ten in defense last season. Don't have the stats in front of me, but it doesn't look like it's destined for a much better finish this year. We'll see if some schematic switch-ups take place. We'll see if Purdue starts running some stuff that's a little more designed to be forgiving for lack of high-end ability. But right now, this is an ugly conversation because once fans collectively start turning on a coach, tough to get that back. It's really tough to get that back. Purdue needs positive momentum in the worst possible way right now. If Purdue doesn't get positive momentum here soon, this conversation will really get going throughout the season as we inch to November, to a hiring cycle and performance reviews and all of that. I don't know. I don't see it yet. By no means do I think it should be anything urgent, but kind of have to have it in the back of your mind, don't you? I had some folks asked about transfers, about the newness. You know, is it possible that some of Purdue's struggles are from a lot of these guys not having played together, the lack of ability at wideout from guys Purdue added in the portal, the struggles in the trenches with some guys Purdue added in the portal, the Georgia transfers? All of these are good questions. I guess one spot I'll start with is that it's not easy to build out of the portal. And we addressed this on the podcast last cycle, this time last year, that, look, it's not easy to just build a roster out of the portal. It is really difficult to do that. It's possible, but it's not easy. And Purdue's seeing that right now. I think a lot of these portal additions are fine, but they're not guys that move the needle a whole lot. And Purdue really needed some guys who move the needle. Purdue really needed some guys who make plays, who are legit starters at a high level. And I don't know that Purdue got a lot of that. At wide receiver, you know, these weren't exactly guys who were proven producers from their previous spots. A lot of potential. Certainly these Georgia guys, very high-end athletes who have some serious potential, but they haven't done much. These guys, Cam Brown and Denylon Morissette and CJ Smith, I mean, they didn't light it up at their previous schools. You're betting on the traits. The offensive line spots, Purdue was fine on the offensive line yesterday, but it's a big jump for Corey Stewart and DJ Wingfield, and I'm forgetting someone, to go from a lower level up to the Big Ten level. And keep in mind, Purdue played all 5 offensive linemen every snap yesterday, no rotation at all. As far as the newness of transfer portal additions and not having played together, there's probably some validity to it. The problem is so many teams are doing that and not having the struggles that I think it's a tough excuse. I think it's one of those things that you have to adapt to unless you recruit at such a high level out of high school that you're not taking a ton of portal guys. And right now, Purdue's at a spot where it's taking a lot of portal guys. It's not sustainable year in, year out, but even though Purdue took all these portal guys, and even though I don't think that's the best way to build a roster, I mean, it's got to be better than this. It's got to be better than what Purdue did in the game yesterday against Oregon State. And on the Georgia guys, I mean, we haven't seen two of them. C.J. Madden got hurt yesterday. There's three. Denylon Morissette hasn't done a whole lot. He does lead the team in receiving touchdowns, but yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough reality that Purdue, just on both sides of the ball, is not in a super competitive spot. 7 for 17 for 56 yards from Hudson Card. Where does the blame fall for that? Graham Harrell on a card himself, Ryan Walters. I mean, I guess a combination of Card, the receivers, and Graham Harrell. The offensive line was fine, but yeah, I mean, you can always blame the quarterback and always say he wasn't good enough. The wide receivers don't do much for me, and the scheme doesn't do a lot for me. You don't see stuff schemed open at Purdue right now, and that's a problem. I mean, that when Purdue had its success, it had a lot of good stuff just schemed open. Brom, Tiller, those were good schemed offenses. Where are a couple of specific aspects of the game you'll be looking for this team to improve at in future weeks? The pass game, do you have a pulse there, to quote Jeff Brom? Can you get anything going? The run defense just has to be better. I'd like to see better discipline on defense. You have some angles to the ball that are just horrible. Joseph Jefferson had a really rough game yesterday, getting extended action for the first time. A lot of disconnect on defense. You're not seeing Purdue execute well, and that has to change for a program that wants to have a defensive mindset. I had someone ask about Marcos Davila. Will Purdue see him? I don't know that a quarterback switch is going to help you. I think there's a gigantic drop-off between your starter and your backup. On Davila, I don't know. I don't like the idea of throwing a true freshman out there just to throw him out there, because that's how you tank a kid's confidence and it just never comes back at that point. That's a problem. I doubt it. I think you ride with Hudson Card, but there have to be some things that change. And we'll see if Purdue's capable of doing that. We'll see if that's something you can even do week over week. I know there are some questions I didn't get to. I tried to get as many as possible. I'll do another sweep, and anything I didn't get to, I'll add to the podcast for Wednesday night. Look, Purdue's got Nebraska up next, and we'll preview the Huskers later this week, but this was a program that for a while Purdue had some good success against, and they seem to be headed in opposite directions right now. We'll see what happens. It's homecoming at Purdue. It's a sold-out crowd, but Purdue goes into Big Ten play in a really bad spot, and this is not a very forgiving schedule. We'll see what Purdue can do, but you've got to just come out and have a better effort. Nebraska's favored by about 10. We'll preview it all later this week. Start sending over your questions for that podcast. Twitter, @BoilersBeyond. Email, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. Until next week, be sure to follow the show. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we will talk then. Until later this week, take care, everybody.